Welcome to the Oxford Executive MBA admissions webinar. My name is Alejandra de Rojas, and I'm a recruitment manager for the Executive MBA program. And I'm here with my colleague, Alex Macknamara, who is the Senior Admissions Advisor. And we're going to spend today talking you through the whole process of applying to the Oxford Executive MBA. So whether you are at the beginning of the application process or you are already working on the application, we will be here to help you to make the strongest application that you can. I can see we've got a large, diverse group here already joining us today for the webinar from all over the world. So good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are, and welcome. Next slide, please. We will start by giving you an idea of who we are. This is the Executive MBA team. You can see here we have Kathy Harvey, who is the Associate Dean here at Said Business School, and Helen Sayward, the Executive MBA Program Director. We also have the admissions team with Joanne and Alex that will be handling your application once you have applied. But your first point of contact will probably be the recruitment team. Hannah, who is handling the UK, Middle East, Latin America, and Oceania. Jonathan, responsible for North America, Middle East, and Africa, and then myself, responsible for Asia, Middle East, and Europe. Next slide, please. In terms of what we're covering today, I will briefly provide you with more information about the Oxford Executive MBA, such as the program structure and a typical class profile. We also will be talking about the admission process broadly. My colleague Alex will talk about the details for the application form, materials you will need to provide, and we will cover some frequently asked questions. We will also offer some advice on key areas such as the admissions essays. We will also talk about the steps after you have submitted an application, potential interview, and response times. In addition to that, Alex will also provide you with more information about the Oxford University Colleges. The best way we prefer doing this is if you have any questions, please do ask them as we go along in the chat box, and we will answer your questions throughout the session. Please do feel free to ask any questions you might have. Next slide, please. All right, so let's begin by giving you a quick summary of the structure of the Executive MBA program. At Said, we have two intakes per academic year. One starts in January and the other one in September, with each intake typically consisting of around 70 students. The Oxford Executive MBA is a part-time program that allows students to gain a full master's qualification without interrupting their professional careers. It consists of 15 to 17 one-week modules spread over 22 or 24 months, depending on the intake, which means that there is a gap of 4 to 5 weeks between each module. The first module is going to be held online for everyone to ensure that your whole class can start their Executive MBA journey together and to offer a level playing field for all regardless of travel restrictions. In terms of the format, students are required to study for a duration of 1 week at a time, usually Monday to Friday with occasional weekend classes. And then we have some compulsory core international modules in China, India, or Peru, and 2 overseas electives in Cape Town and Palo Alto that you can choose. You basically have 15 core subjects in the first year, and then you choose your 4 electives towards the end of the first year, depending on your interests. In addition to that, we have 2 compulsory projects, the GoTo Global Opportunities and Threats, Oxford, and the Entrepreneurship Project. The Entrepreneurship Project allows you to explore your entrepreneurial side, putting together a complete business plan and putting your program learnings and ideas into practice. GoTo, which is designed to stimulate your thinking, identify business opportunities, and come up with opportunities to challenges arising from very high impact global trends. Next slide, please. In terms of a typical study week, the Oxford Executive MBA includes a mix of in-person and some virtual learning. When you are in person on campus in Oxford to complete a module, this is what you might expect to see on your timetable. There are different ranges of subjects that you will complete throughout the week. There are also opportunities to engage with our cohorts, our careers department, and to hear from guest speakers. And once a week, we will offer you the opportunity to go as a group to have dinner at one of the university colleges. Next slide, please. Just quickly on the Executive MBA class, we have a very diverse group of people from many different sectors and also from many different countries by nationality and also by where people are based. 70 to 80% of our students tend to fly from outside the UK, from all around the world to come and study at Said Business School. The average age tends to be 40 and the average years of professional experience 15. Of course, there are very big ranges around that. In terms of gender split, we tend to welcome around 35 to 40% women onto the Executive MBA program. We are also proud to say that 41% of the S22 cohort is female, representing the highest proportion of female students amongst the top 30 global Executive MBA programs based on the Financial Times 2021 EMBA rankings. We would love to have more gender parity in our classes, so we do encourage all women to make sure to apply before the upcoming Women's Scholarship deadline that is meant to be on the 3rd of April for the September intake. In addition to that, we are not the typical business school that only attracts students from the consulting or financial sector. Don't get me wrong, you're also more than welcome, but we are also welcoming scientists, lawyers, journalists, doctors, politicians, professors, NGOs. And well, in the end, what we believe that what really enriches the whole master's experience is to be able to bring together a diverse set of perspectives. This is definitely one of the biggest challenges of doing the master's with us, but it will maximize your learning and networking opportunities whilst you're studying here with us. Next slide, please. Here is an overview of the application process. Next slide, thank you. It takes between 4 to 6 weeks and starts with the online submission of your application. You would need to submit your materials online via our online application portal, and then once we have all those materials, this will go for first review to the admissions committee, and then they will decide whether to take that further. If they do, then you'll be invited to the interview stage, and then after that, there is another review where the admissions committee will decide whether to offer you a place on the program. If you're successful, you will receive an email that will contain details of your offer. Next slide, please. Now, to give you an idea on your own timeline. As I mentioned before, we have 2 cohorts per year, starting in September and in January. And we always advise that you apply early. We operate on a rolling basis. So your application will be reviewed as soon as it comes. The sooner you apply, the better, in order to guarantee a place on the program, have a wider choice of colleges, and in order to secure funding. Quickly, to go over the deadlines. We have a list of deadlines that you can see here. We generally have 5 stages of deadlines associated with each of the program intakes. The ones in yellow are scholarship deadlines. For the January 2023 intake, you're still in time to put in an application, as the final deadline is on the 7th of November. But don't wait until last minute to submit the application. If you're looking at September, you can already apply. However, the application portal for September 2023 is not open yet. Nevertheless, you can start filling out the application form, and once it is open, most likely by the end of this month, you will just need to select the right intake before submitting. As I mentioned before, when it comes to applications, we operate on a rolling basis process. So although there are stages that you should consider, such as the scholarship, the deadlines, and the final deadline, you should be able to submit your application in time. But whenever you submit your application, within about 2 to 3 weeks of submitting your application, the admissions team will be in touch whether you made it through the second stage or not. Next slide, please. Thank you. The tuition fee for January 2023 is £98,590, which includes all tuition, assessment, essential reading materials, meals, career services and coaching sessions, membership of an Oxford College, and of the Oxford Union. The fee also includes accommodation for one of the core international modules delivered in India, China, or Peru. It is payable in installments. You don't need to pay all fee upfront. If the application is successful, a 50% deposit is payable to secure your place, followed by a 50% of the program fee a month before the start of the program, and the remaining 35% by the beginning of your second year. We will soon have the fee for the next academic year, including September 2023 and January 2024. So stay tuned. Next slide, please. There are a number of different financing options, and we can help you build a case for your company. If you would like any information, or even if you or your HR director would like to come and visit the school, we can arrange that for you. We do work with Prodigy Loans, who can offer up to an 80% of the program fee, but there are also other loans options available. And so I would suggest investigating the various options and find out which one is the best for you. We have a number of EMBA scholarships here as well, like the EMBA Director Scholarship, the Women's Scholarship, Hashmut Patel, and the Oxford Alumni Scholarship. So do have a closer look at our website to find out more. There are also external scholarships, and one useful place to look at this would be at the university official website. It contains over 1,000 different scholarships listed, and there will be some applicable to all the programs that we have here. So certainly worth spending 2 minutes to use the scholarship finder. My colleagues will share now more information about those different funding options on the chat box. Next slide, please. Thank you. All right, so let's get into the central part of this. I will hand it over to Alex to lead on this section, which is the actual admissions process.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Macknamara. I am a Senior Admissions Advisor here at the Business School. I joined the Business School in 2015, so I've looked at thousands of applications across lots of different programs that we've received here at the Business School. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about give you some general guidance about the application form, how to avoid some of the pitfalls that we see generally, and just to give you a little bit more information about the process further to what Alejandra explained as well. So this is just a screenshot of the start of the application portal. And I think the best way to guide you through this would be to address each of the admissions requirements that we publicise for the EMBA programme, and how you can demonstrate that you meet those in your application form. So I'm going to work through them one by one. I'm beginning with management experience. Now, Alejandra gave you a class profile earlier that explained that the average EMBA student has around 15 years of experience, which means that lots of students have more and lots of students have less. And students come from lots of different professional backgrounds. So when this slide says broad definition, that management experience can come from lots of different backgrounds. So, for example, the management experience could be entrepreneurial, managing your company. It could be corporate, where you're managing teams and budgets. It could be public sector, teaching, law, and so on and so on. So when you're demonstrating that management experience, you can do that through your CV, where you can explain. We have a template on the application form, which you can follow, just to outline in bullet points below each role you've held, your management experience, the number of people you've led, the budget that you've managed, and so on. There's also an employment section as well, where you can explain your key responsibilities and how that applies to your EMBA application. And then if you're invited to interview as well, we'll discuss that a little bit more. And if you have any questions around your management experience, if you're considering whether you might be experienced enough at this point, then you're very welcome to submit a CV for review by our recruitment team. So academics. Now, we are aware that academic qualifications differ around the world. So we ask for the equivalent of a second-class uppers, a 2-1 in the UK system. That assessment is made based on the degree you've studied, the grade you achieved, and the institution that you studied at, and is done by our admissions team once you apply. And we ask that you submit your transcripts when you apply to the programme, and we will review those, and our admissions committee will review those. Now, I should add at this point that all applications are reviewed holistically. So when our admissions committee review your application, they will review the whole application at the same time. So if you don't hold a 2-1 degree, you think it may not be that equivalency. It doesn't mean that you can't apply to the program. It may just mean that you need to demonstrate your suitability for the program in other areas. So that might be through your management experience or through a GMAT, which I'll talk a little bit more about in the next slide. Now, how you submit this on your application form is you'll be asked to indicate the university that you studied at and the qualification that you achieved. And you'll then be asked to upload your transcripts. And the transcript specifically is the document which outlines the modules that you studied and the grades that you achieved in each module and the overall grade as well. If they're not in English, then we ask that they are certifiably translated into English, because while we have lots of international speakers here at the business school, we just want to make sure that everyone reviewing your application has the full context of your background, in particular your academics. So one piece of advice I would give you is that if you haven't got them yet, to arrange your transcripts now, whether they are in the loft or whether you need to order them from your university. Most universities will be able to get them sent out to you fairly quickly, but it may take, 2, 3, 4 weeks for you to receive them. So it's good planning to get them at this point. Now, the Gmat test. So the Gmat test is a assessment of quantitative skills, verbal reasoning, integrated reasoning, and your analytical background. Now, we ask for a Gmat test, and it's very common at business schools to ask for a Gmat or an executive assessment. Now, we would usually consider a Gmat score of 650 and above, or an executive assessment score of 150 and above. The executive assessment is a new test offered by GMAT that is specifically for executive candidates. So you may want to consider that as opposed to the GMAT, as it may require a little less preparation and may be more suited to your background. We do offer waivers from the Gmat test. Now, these are generally for people that have 10 years in management or 10 years of management experience. And to apply for that, on the application form, you'll be asked whether you're applying for a waiver, and you'll be asked why. Now, within that waiver request, you need to be able to explain how you meet or how you've demonstrated that you've excelled using those skill sets that are assessed by the Gmat. So that might be that you are constantly reviewing budgets, or you are regularly sharing strategic analysis with colleagues. It may be that you studied these topics in your academic background. You just need to address each of those. And the reason we ask this is because we want you to have a basic grasp of the mathematical theory that underpins the program that you will then develop further when you're in the program as well. So it's as much to make sure that you're prepared for the program as to make sure that we need it when we assess your application. And if you take a Gmat test or an executive assessment, we would ask you to make those official scores available to us, which is done through GMAT as well. So, English language tests. The program is delivered in English. So we need to make sure that all students have a sufficient grasp of English to be able to understand the program and communicate with their classmates and deliver their written work. So how do we ask that you demonstrate this? Now, there's a few different ways. If you're from an English-speaking country, as recognised by the UK government, then you won't need to do anything further. Once you input your citizenship onto the application form, it won't ask you again for any more information. If that's not the case, that then leaves you 3 options. You can take a test, or you can apply for one of the 2 waivers. Now, if you're taking a test, we have a minimum requirement for the IELTS, the TOEFL, and the CAE test, which is all available on our website. Or you can apply for a waiver on one of 2 bases. And those are that you've completed a degree that was taught entirely in English, or you have substantial professional experience in English, kind of day-to-day, working in English, speaking, reading, writing. Now, each requirement for this waiver has a number of bullet points, and you'll see for the degree level, the university asked that the degree was completed within the last 2 years, which we know generally doesn't apply to our EMBA students because of that average age. It means most people are more than 2 years out from when they last completed their degree. So most waiver requests that we receive are based on that professional experience. And you'll be asked on the application form to indicate that that's the waiver you're applying for, and then to justify why you're applying for it. And we understand that around the world, people use English in their day-to-day professional life. So we just ask you just to detail that. There's not trying to catch you out. We just want to understand where you're using that English, whether it's with clients, whether it's throughout the workplace, on calls, emails, and so on. Just detail that in the waiver request, and then it will be considered as part of the application. Okay. Now, references. References are an opportunity for us to get more context about your application and to get to know you a bit more. We ask for 2 references that you can submit through, and we ask for at least 1 professional reference that most people will submit to. And when selecting your referee, we recommend that you choose people that know you well, that can speak in detail about you, because we want that context. We would like you to select, generally speaking, a manager if you have one, or a colleague if you're senior in your organization. What we try and discourage is that you select, let's say, the most senior person in your organization, and they don't know you very well, so they can't speak in much detail about you. So while you've got a very credible referee, we don't learn much from it. So make sure it's someone who's going to commit the time and learn a bit more about you. The way that we collect the references is that you input their information of the referee within your application form. And as soon as you've done that, we will contact the referee to request that the reference is submitted. And it's a very simple process for your referee to submit that. And it's a fairly standard written reference. And we just have 4 or 5 check boxes that we ask they complete just to assess some certain skill sets of yours. You will receive an automated email just to let you know when each one's been submitted, because we want to keep you updated on how that process is progressing. Now, we do not want to see references from family members because we don't feel like we can learn too much about your professional background on that basis. And generally speaking, it shouldn't be someone that you employ just because they may not be as critical of you and provide that context that we're looking for. Good and bad. Now, essays. Now, this is probably the most common question we receive when we're out and about and speaking to candidates, is about the essays. Now, there's 3 essays required as part of an EMBA application, 2 of which are 500 words and 1 of which is 2,000 words. Now, the essays are an opportunity for us to get to know you better. It's an opportunity for you to showcase the skill sets that you've claimed to have in your waiver requests. So, for example, your English writing, you'll have to write these essays in English, and this is a chance for you to showcase that. It's an opportunity for you to show your analytical ability to support a Gmat waiver request. And it's also the type of essay that you might submit when you're on the programme, so we can get a sense of your academic writing style as well. And I'm going to talk through just each essay one by one, briefly, and then provide some overall guidance for that essay writing. So, number 1 is why are you applying to the Executive MBA? So here we really want some specific examples of which parts of the programme you're interested in, what you're applying for, why Oxford, and so on from that. We understand that the general theme of why people are applying to an EMBA is similar, and you want to better yourself and you want exposure to the network and so on. And they're all very valid reasons, but we like to see some specific examples of what you might be looking for. Alejandra mentioned the international modules, she mentioned the go-to project and so on. If those are things you're looking at, if you're looking at the Skoll Centre or anything like that as part of the business school, mention them in your essay, do your research, because it will also, if you're invited to interview, be questioned there as well. Number two is a self-reflection essay. Now, we, again, want just to get to know more about you. There's no right or wrong answer here. We see a real variety of different responses to this essay question, and they're all very interesting. The most important thing about this essay is to remember that it is a self-reflection essay. We don't want quotes from your colleague or your 360. We want to hear from you directly. So make sure it's something that you've written yourself and you've really thought about what your strengths and your weaknesses are and what your colleagues would say about you. This program is here to develop both hard skills and soft skills, and you'll find that throughout the program there'll be lots of self-reflection through coaching and careers chats and time spent with your network as well. So really spend some time and think about that. We're not trying to catch you out. If you put that sometimes you can get impatient with people, it's not the problem. We just want to get to know you a bit better, and an honest reflection of you as well. So essay 3. This is by far probably the most time-consuming part of the application form. It's a 2,000 word count essay, and it's a test of your analytical ability, your academic writing, how you are concise but also detailed to meet the word count. And we're looking for you to discuss 3 different action plans for points of your organisation that would be viewed as problematic. Now, we're not necessarily looking at the subject here. We're looking at how you approach it, how you analyse, and how you strategically look at those problems and how you would deal with them. So, right for a non-specialist audience, understand that lots of different people will read this essays and they may not have the same knowledge of jargon or shorthand that you might understand. So, if in your everyday work you shorten a particular word, use the longer form at least once in the essay to explain it. This is also a chance for us to get to know your potential contributions to the class. Throughout the class, with that diverse professional background, we really encourage people to get involved in the class and share their insights and their background. So this is a chance for us to see the type of contributions you would make and kind of what background you're coming from and what your approach is. So we kind of recommend a structure that you outline the situation, you outline the problems that you're looking to address, and then what your approaches are with advantages and disadvantages. Look at it from both angles. Try not to be too descriptive, be as analytical as possible, and then provide a conclusion at the end. And I'll talk a little bit more about the interview process later, but this is something that will be challenged in your interview as well. The interviewer will want to see that you can talk and support the arguments that you make in your essay. Okay. So some general essay advice. Read the essay's questions carefully. Now, this is particularly important to make sure you're covering the content that you need to, but also the word count as well. And one of the biggest pitfalls we see in applications is that people will submit essays that are well below the word count, and it will disadvantage your application. We can't learn as much about you from that, or your style that I've mentioned before, because you haven't met the word count. You're really disadvantaging your application by doing that. So make sure you avoid the short weight answers, you read the questions carefully, and in particular the word count, because you want to maximize the opportunity you have to showcase your ability and your background and your suitability for the program. Avoid repetition and narrative. I mentioned there, try not to be too descriptive. You obviously have to have a balance because you want to explain your problem, but try and focus really on the advantages and the disadvantages of the solutions that you're making. Check your spelling, your punctuation, your grammar. Explain acronyms and abbreviations, as I mentioned earlier. And most importantly, don't plagiarize. So all essays will be run through a plagiarism detection software. So if anything has come up, has been plagiarized, we will know. And again, we'll disadvantage your application because we know you haven't written it yourself. We want to get to know more about you. And each essay can be just uploaded directly into your application. It's very clear where they are, Word document, PDF, all fine and clear. Okay, So I'm now going to move on a little bit more after you've met those that criteria I explained and submitted those documents to do that, to talk a little bit more about post-application and the interview process if you're invited. Alejandra explains that there will be initial review of your application, and if you pass through that, then you will be invited to an interview. And the interview will be an opportunity for us to get to know you better, to challenge you on your essays, those potential contributions to the class you'll make, those motivations. So everything you've already thought about in your essays and the rest of your application, but just a chance for us to ask a few more questions about that and get a bit more detail. So tip number one for your essay is reread your application, be familiar with it. The interviewer will have read it in detail and they will have come prepared with lots of different questions that they will ask you about. They will want to know more about your professional background. Why did you move from one role to another? If there was a gap in your CV, they might ask you about that. If you were only in a role for a short period of time, they might ask you to explain that. Your essays, they'll be familiar with and they'll quiz you on that. They'll ask you to support arguments. They may try and challenge you. So make sure that you're prepared for that and able to support those arguments that you've made. And motivation for the program, again, is important. You know, they want to see that you've done your research, that you've attended webinars like this, that you've read student blogs, that you understand what the program is, what it's looking to develop, and what you want from it as well. So make sure you've prepared some examples and you know in your mind clearly what it is you're looking for from the program. And again, like we understand it's, you know, people are looking to advance their careers professionally, but just think about what kind of work you do with the careers team, what tools here at the school you would take advantage of. And then they'll just cross-check the information. They'll talk to you a bit more about your background and the application in general. It's a very kind of conversational style interview. You'll have the opportunity to ask your own questions at the end, and the interviewer, who will know lots of students very well and the program well, will be able to answer them or point you in the direction of someone else who will be able to. So after your interview, if you are successful, we send you an offer email containing lots of documents with information about the program and what we've asked you for the next steps, how to accept the offer, how to explore your visa, your college, which I'll talk a bit more about in a moment. Now, I mentioned earlier about ordering your transcripts now. One thing we will ask all students who are made an offer is to provide an original of their transcripts so we can verify those. So if you are looking for those or you still need to order them, then go ahead and order them and keep them handy because we will ask you to provide those. Alejandra mentioned the fee payment structure. So the deposit payment, which Alejandra mentioned, will secure your place on the program, we'll know you're coming, we'll make all the necessary preparations, and we'll begin your college application as well at that point, and we'll support you in your visa. And we'll give you lots more information about that, but students can generally come to Oxford on a visitor visa for the modules. So I'm going to talk a bit more now about the college process and the university structure, because this is another question that we receive quite a lot, and how does this work? So as an EMBA student, you will be a student of the business school. Now, Oxford University is an umbrella term for teaching departments and colleges, and every EMBA student will be taught here at the business school and then also a member of the college. Your experience will really be defined by the business school because you have these intense one-week blocks where you're really taking advantage of the powerful network you have in your EMBA class, the faculty, the world-class faculty, the perspectives you're getting from the rest of the class. So throughout the day, you know, an average day, you'll have, you know, a few hours of lectures, you'll have time with your study group, there'll be guest speakers, you can take advantage of the different entrepreneurial centres and so on here at the business school. And then as an added value to that, you will also be a member of an Oxford college. And the college will take care of things like your welfare. They'll give you access to a network of students from lots of different academic backgrounds. So you'll share your college with students from maybe the history department or scientists or mathematicians, and the faculty for those students as well. So it's not just students, but also the faculty you can access there. They'll then have access to things like sports facilities like gyms or rowing clubs, it's very popular here in Oxford, or clubs. They may have accommodation to make things as easy as possible for you. When you're coming for those week-long modules, you can stay at your college, it may be a bit cheaper than a hotel. and generally a bit like just a comfortable place to stay throughout. So there are around 39 colleges in total. There are 39 colleges in total across the university, and around 20 of them take EMBA students. Now, most colleges will offer a very similar experience of those things I mentioned on the last slide, but you may prefer one college to another for a variety of different reasons. Some people like an older college, some people like a college that can offer more accommodation, but it might be a bit newer. Some people want the location of their college to be close to the business school, and we'll talk you through everything to do with that. But if you want a particular college, then it's best to apply early, because each college will have a quota of students they'll take from each intake. And once that's full, they won't take any more. So it benefits you to apply early in the process if you're looking for a particular college. There's obviously lots of history and architecture around Oxford. It's hugely impressive. As part of the EMBA course, you will go for college dinner every week, every module week with your classmates. So you'll experience lots of different colleges anyway, and you'll also have access to your own college. Now, this is really about how you make the most of Oxford. As I say, your experience will really be defined at the business school, and then it's up to you how much you want to take advantage of the rest of Oxford. If you want to go to your college and spend time with students from other programs, then absolutely you can do that. And you might choose to do that in an evening or at lunchtime. But some students are quite happy here at the business school and they just want to take advantage here. So they may not go to their college as much. It's really up to you and what you make of it and how you manage your time. On any one evening in Oxford, you will find that there are 3 or 4 things going on that you will have to choose between. And it's really up to you what you want to do with that. And that's why we try and take you for a college dinner during every module. So that brings me to the end. And I think we'll answer some questions now, but I'll hand back to Alejandra, who will talk you through these next steps.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alex. Thank you for sharing all that information with us. And now let's take a look at the next steps. We will welcome you to get in touch. So here are some of the next steps for you to consider. If you would like to find out more about your profile, please do send us your CV for review. You are also more than welcome to get in contact with the recruitment team, and you can see our details listed here beneath the slide. And if you submit your CV for review on the website, it will automatically be sent to the recruitment manager in charge to your region. So please do also take a look at the upcoming events posted on our website. My colleague is going to share those in a minute. And if you're ready, please do feel free to start your application. Remember that the final deadline for the January intake is going to be on the 7th of November, so you're still in time to do so. And well, unless you have any further questions, thank you for listening. Good luck with your Oxford Executive MBA application and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.